nice to...
And actually understands our lives, and yeah.
As much as anyone can.
Yeah. For sure.
Oh, God.
I should stop crunching things.
You probably should. I doubt that it's coming across well on microphone.
Well, yeah, or too well.
Yeah. Either way, probably not a great plan.
All right, Anna. Bad news. Your grandpa died.
Yes, my grandpa died.
It's
This
not all
morning.
bad news. This morning.
About 11 hours ago. That part where I woke up and could not go back to sleep and had no idea why. And then found out when I woke up this morning because I got the texts that my grandfather had indeed passed on from this mortal coil.
To the feet of Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, my grandma is waiting for him at the feet of Jesus. That's what the text said. It also said, oh, I should probably actually just look it up because that was pretty great. It was about being larger than life and shit. Oh, there it is. Got his final promotion to heaven this morning at 4:30 a.m., which was 3:30 a.m. our time.
When you were awake.
Yeah. Grandma was there to meet him at Jesus' feet. Well done, faithful servant. Well done, larger-than-life father. Followed by a YouTube link to Chris Tomlin's Holy Forever lyric video.
Chris Tomlin, man. That dude's been around.
Dude, we didn't even listen to Chris Tomlin when I was growing up. That was way too contemporary.
It's funny how contemporary gets to be traditional eventually.
Kind of fucked up. But yeah, it's not every day that your real life folk hero grandfather passes away. Because that's what my dad means by texting larger than life father, is that my grandfather was a folk hero to thousands of people. It's a pretty niche thousands of people, but it's still thousands of people. And so it's also he lasted a lot longer than we thought he would. I was fairly convinced that he would go within like 3 months of my grandma who died last May. Oh, but no, he made it like a whole year and a half without her, which was pretty shocking.
Yeah. I attribute that to not being able to remember things, though.
Yeah, he did have pretty bad dementia.
Yeah. I think
So
if
did
he
Grandma.
could, if he was more with it, he would have gone sooner. But
Yeah, I think you're right.
couldn't remember well enough to remember his loss.
Remember well enough to be sad enough
Mm-hmm.
to die.
Mm-hmm.
That's sad.
I know, isn't that? It's a crazy thought process, but I think it's a real one. Like,
No, I would agree with you. I think that's very likely. But no, my grandpa was the patriarch of a very large family and a folk hero to lots of people because of Christian-y things. He worked at Bible schools, missions agencies.
and he had the classic Christian story.
Oh, it was such a good Christian story.
Classic.
I think I told it on TikTok at one point.
Really?
Oh, I think so. Well, I recorded it. I don't know if I've published it yet, but
I don't know. I don't remember seeing it, but
yeah,
I've heard it a lot of times. So
I
maybe I just don't
know,
remember.
I know, because we told it at every single church when I was a child because it's a good story.
It is a good story.
Yeah, because Jerry Wendell was a hard drinking, hard fighting, hard working man.
Yeah. See, just the start of the story is super easy.
That's right. It pulls you right in.
You know, this is off topic, but I feel like I was always, as a person who's supposed to be called to be a missionary, I was always jealous / slightly annoyed with people whose testimonies
We're so good.
Yeah!
Oh, yeah.
Who started that way? Because
Yeah.
mine was so boring.
Mm-hmm.
I was raised in church with a Christian family, and I was baptized at the age
And
of
you have to
and
spin it. You have to
whatever
be
it was.
like,
yeah.
I was blessed to be part of this family. But no, not my grandpa. My grandpa was a hard drinking, hard fighting, hard working man named Jerry Wendell.
Yeah.
He was born in Mountain Home, Idaho.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Of course it was Mountain
And his people he knew had come over the Rocky Mountains in covered wagons to make Mountain Home, Idaho. And he was a hard rock miner. Just like that. Hard rock miner. You're such a city person. So, mining is when you get valuable resources from the mountains / underground. Often, it's associated with precious metals such as gold, silver. However, hard rock mining is the process of getting into a quarry and harvesting those things which we use for things like construction. Hard rock mining. Which is really fun because his wife's father, so my great-grandfather, Frank. Funk was on the other side. My great-grandpa Frank had a mine as well, but he was looking for gold.
Not them boring rocks.
Not them boring rocks, and they were not very well to do. My grandma and her sisters had to find them meat basically every day by taking long sticks and like hitting bushes and tall grasses so that when the pigeons and grouse flew up, they would hit them on the head and kill them so that they could have them for food. And my grandfather, Jerry, saved my grandmother from that very hard scrabble existence because he had a steady job and then he had 4 children with her.
Which I mean, like, I feel like I heard that story a lot, but like I feel like that's like probably a pretty common story in
It is.
whatever decade of life it was. What would that have been? 60s?
Yeah.
60s Montana.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a pretty common story. I mean,
yeah,
based on my experience living in Montana.
Everybody's father or grandfather had come back from the war unless they had gotten an exemption for farming or very important jobs that they had to use to support the war effort. So it was very hard scrabble for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and I've been to Trout Creek, Montana. It's not Trout Creek, it's Trout Creek.
Some of the newer residents will tell you it is Trout Creek. They are wrong. And I will fight them to the death about that shit.
Even after all of the batshit weirdness, Anna will still fight people to death over that shit. Anna likes making her very angry.
Mm-hmm.
I was going somewhere.
I have to fight something to the death. If it's beer foam, I'll fight the beer foam. But my grandfather loved fighting, and he loved working. So he would work, he would go to the bar, he would fight, he would come home. And then this fat preacher moved in.
Aren't they all?
Well, I know at least 2 preachers who aren't fat. So.
I do a couple too, so yeah. I'm clearly exaggerating.
So they had one church nearby that was a Bible-believing church. The rest of the churches don't believe the Bible, according to my family. But that one was a Bible-believing church.
Find your own self-righteous group.
That's right. And it was called the Little Brown Church. And for all of the growing up years, my dad and his siblings...
I know this one, Libby.
Close.
Oh. No, it's the one on the west.
Yeah.
Crap.
That's okay. I don't
can't remember
remember
what
the
it's
specific
called.
one either because it wasn't actually like in a town. But my dad and his siblings always thought that the Little Brown Church in the Vale, oh come to the church in the wildwood, oh come to the church in the Vale. That was about that church because it was the Little Brown Church.
It was not far from Libby.
In
my defense.
You're right.
It was definitely not in Libby. I know where it is in my head, but I can't think of the town name either.
But this was a brilliant fat preacher.
A brilliant one.
A brilliant one. Because what he realized was if you were going to get to the hard-headed Montanans and Idahoans,
this is actually a scary story.
You needed to go through their children.
Yeah, that's why it's a scary story.
Oh no, we still do that to this day. That's like my whole life is getting to people through their children.
Yeah.
It's not scary at all. It's fine.
Yeah, we don't deal with that. That wasn't a big problem we had this week.
No. Anyways,
sorry.
This full gospel preacher
very full
from the Little Brown Church sent out all of his elders to go to every single house, homestead, lean-to, shanty, etc., and ask if they could come around Sunday morning and pick up the children and bring them to Sunday school so that their parents could have a break. This is not the 2000s. This was a thing that people like to do. So they got lots of people to agree to just like let their children get picked up in a white van by a church person.
Down by the river.
Down by the river every single Sunday. And then they got to my grandparents' house and they gave their whole spiel. And lucky for them, my grandpa wasn't there. And they finished their spiel.
Why are they lucky your grandpa wasn't there?
My grandma listened to the spiel, and then she looked them dead in the eyes, as goes the story, and said, "Do you know whose house this is?" And they were like, "No." And she said, "This is Jerry Wendell's house." And they ran. Because he was a hard drinking, hard fighting man. But he was at the bar.
So goes the story.
At that point. So goes the story. He came home from the bar, not sober. And
so hard to imagine him in a bar.
I know, right? It's been so long since that man was in a bar.
Yeah.
But anyways, he came home. He was not sober. And my grandma told him this story about these people who would come like, haha, isn't that funny? Just trying to spin it so that when he found out that men had come to the house, like, my grandma wasn't in trouble. And he was like, well, they should go. And my grandma was like, they should do what now? It was like, it's my firm opinion that every child should have a saluting acquaintance with God.
If only he had maintained that thought process.
A saluting acquaintance. You gotta have a saluting acquaintance with God. So,
what happened?
my dad, my two uncles, and my auntie got picked up every morning and to go to the Little Brown Church and go
every morning?
Every Sunday morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, dang, even I didn't have that.
No. Every Sunday morning, they went to the Little Brown Church in the church van. But the deal was...
That's not a short drive.
The deal was...
I just would like to state.
They could come pick up the children, but the parents had to come get them at the end. Because they couldn't possibly do that much gas money. Because it's not a short drive.
Yeah, it's a decent drive.
Every single Sunday, my grandparents would drive the family sedan, park across the street at the end of the parking lot.
Everything is out there.
Everything's, exactly.
Long drive. Sorry.
And they would just honk at the end of the church service until my dad and his brothers and sister jumped in the sedan and they would peel out of that parking lot. And every single time that he came and started laying on the horn, so my dad and my uncles and auntie would run out and get in the car, that full gospel preacher would waddle across the road and say hi and make sure that he had welcomed him and thanked him for letting the children come. And then finally, my grandpa felt so very guilty that Easter Sunday, he...
Classic. It's classic.
It's classic.
I
He's
sometimes
like,
wonder how many details of the story they changed to make
oh,
it this classic.
I'm sure, but this is the story. This is why my grandpa is not a human. My grandpa is a folk hero. So he felt so guilty that this fat little preacher was taking care of his kids for a couple hours every week that he's like, it's Easter Sunday, we're gonna do it. People do it all the time. They go to church on Easter Sunday and Christmas and they're fine and they get out of there unscathed. We're gonna be okay. So he put everybody in the car all dressed in their Easter outfits because Easter outfits were a whole thing.
How different would your life have been if you got out unscathed?
Oh God, I can only imagine.
I don't know. That's interesting.
I can only imagine. But
it might not exist. That's a possibility anyway.
He waited and like had an extra cigarette, then put everybody in the car, and then got to the church service and they had just closed the doors so they could start the service. And he turned around in that sedan and pointed his finger in the kids' faces and said, "Here's what's going on. We're getting here late. That's on purpose. We're gonna sit in the back. You're gonna shut your trap holes. And then before that preacher says the final amen, we're out the door." So they all did exactly that. And they went in late. They sat in the very back row. And before the final amen of the Easter Sunday service, they were out the door peeling out of the parking lot again. And the way my father tells this, there was an extra passenger in that car that Easter morning.
No.
And oh my God, I heard this story several times a week for basically my whole childhood. I always wanted it to be the case that I had misremembered and that fat little preacher man had ended up in the back of that sedan. And it was never the fat little preacher man, it was always the Holy Spirit came home with them that Easter Sunday. And then my grandparents tried to go to sleep, and around 2 o'clock, both of them woke up and they were like, "I can't sleep." And I can't sleep either. You know what, Jerry, we gotta get saved. So they knelt down next to their bed together and got saved. And my grandpa went back to church the next Sunday, and after like maybe 3 weeks or something, they asked him to be the youth pastor. So he came home from that meeting asking him to be the youth pastor, and he took a trash can over to the fridge and he scooped all the beer out into the trash can, and he never had a beer after that.
Oops.
And he hid his cigarettes, but the Holy Spirit found those too.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I know, right? And then before the year was up, they were at Prairie Bible Institute in Canada and had decided to go to Bolivia as missionaries. And that's how my grandpa became a genuine folk hero. Between that and hiding ham radios in loaves of bread so that they would not be deported, there were a lot of things that my grandparents actually had to go through to be folk hero missionaries in Bolivia at that point. Sure. And I don't downplay that any of that was difficult at all. And I do respect them as like genuine folk heroes.
They had interesting lives.
They had,
I mean, like without a doubt, they had
very interesting lives. And my dad rode through leper colonies as a child, and they had a million adventures. And then I was a third generation missionary to Bolivia. So my grandparents went, my dad went, I went. Everybody was missionaries in Bolivia. That was like our whole thing, which is another part of the legend.
Right. Boy, did we ever ruin that.
I did plenty of missionary work. I don't know what you're talking about.
You beer drinking lesbian, you.
I know. I am. As far as I know, in my direct family, I am the only one out of my siblings and parents to have ever tasted alcohol.
That's impressive. Even in I'm not the only one in my family.
I have cousins.
Yeah, me too.
My cousins and uncles and aunties were all also missionaries in some way or another. Yeah. Like that was part of the family legend, because my grandpa was missionary, and then all of my uncles and my aunties and my dad were all like pastors, missionaries, Bible school presidents. Yeah, we've got. They've
Well,
been
even
presidents
you were
of like
pastors for a
5
while.
different Bible schools and missions.
It's. I mean, I knew your grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
Your grandma, grandpa on that side. He was a nice human.
Oh God, yeah, he was great.
Very.
I'm glad he didn't beat people anymore after the Holy Spirit got him. That's really good.
For sure.
I'm really proud of him for being able to make that much of a change in his life. I think it was really healing and good for them, because I could see the difference in how people treated my grandfather and grandmother if they had known them before versus after all of that happened. And they were a genuinely positive influence on
What do you mean by that?
churches full of people, like convincing people not to be drunks and beat each other and ignore their children and like leave each other for girlfriends and boyfriends, like in a good way though.
Yeah. But let me ask this. What's the difference between that? Like a basically healthy thought process of wanting to help people be better.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like kind of, I think, a big assumption about what church is supposed to be.
Yeah, well,
right?
Because that's what it was for my grandparents, because there was like drinking and fighting and beating up on your family as a regular thing until this full gospel preacher found them and the Holy Spirit followed them home in a sedan.
Right.
Like, it's a genuine thing.
Yeah. But like those really good testimonies like that where like it was like this general transformation from a toxic bad lifestyle that was not going anywhere good to a healthier, I don't know.
Observably healthier, because fewer people were being raped, beaten.
Yeah. Less tobacco.
Yeah.
Less alcohol. But like it's such a disconnect for me between that and what I know of purity culture and the cognitive dissonance that is modern evangelicalism and like the nightmare that is missionary
that is so
work.
much of what we grew up with.
Yeah. I mean specifically trying to like transplant whiteness in South America.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, that's how I see it now, but like
absolutely.
It is what it is, to be clear.
I see a lot of that as well.
It's just such a stark contrast though between it's a hard I don't know. Maybe I just haven't wrapped my head around this or spent enough time wrapping my head around it. But like I have a hard time. Like I knowing your grandpa, knowing a kind human being who treated me well.
And we never spoke to after we figured out some things about ourselves, because we knew he wouldn't treat us quite as well, and that would have been incredibly damaging because he treated everybody well that he knew as far as we could tell. But he only knew a very specific subset of people.
Right.
By the time that we actually interacted with him.
I would say he never got a chance to show how he would act around us.
No.
And he would, by the time we'd figured out our stuff, he was so far gone memory-wise. And
he never would have understood.
It wouldn't have been...
He didn't know how to answer a phone by the time we figured out what was going on with us and tried to call him.
Yeah, there was no way we could have ever figured that out.
So, and here's the other side of that.
That's just the way it is.
Not the other side of yours, but the other side of the story of my grandfather is that they went to Prairie Bible Institute in Canada. That's a whole thing on its own.
Yeah.
But while they were there, they read this book called God Planted 5 Seeds. And God Planted 5 Seeds was about 5 missionaries who had gone to South America and been killed by natives because they tried to bring the gospel. And this was prior to Jim Elliot and the Ecuador team. But that was the book that made my grandparents realize that they needed to go as missionaries to Bolivia, specifically because it was a Bolivia-centric story. And my dad was probably like 6 when they decided that that was what was going to happen. And the another part of the story is how
your dad was the youngest of
he was
4?
the youngest of 4, yeah. And another part of their story is how they were at Prairie Bible Institute. They had this map of the world in their hallway, and my grandfather broke the news to my dad that they were going to be moving to Bolivia to be missionaries, and then he left to go do studying, and my dad wandered back and forth, running his finger along this map of the world and wondering, where in Montana is Bolivia? But
I could just hear Dad saying that.
Oh God! every time we were at a church, my dad said this. But I said that it was different from the Jim Elliot one, and it was because it was a different instance of people being killed while they were trying to bring the gospel to people. But the Jim Elliot thing did happen. Their plane was shot down by the Guarani, and they were killed in Ecuador.
Ecuador, yeah. That's what I thought, yeah.
In Ecuador. I did have friends growing up who went to exactly the same tribe. They were at the Guarani. One of them went to movie with us. But Frank Drown was another missionary in Ecuador at the time, and he became a really good friend of mine later. And he was
of yours?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was older than me, like a grandfatherly figure. But he was one of the primary people who did the rescue mission to recover the bodies of Frank Elliot and the rest of those people in Ecuador when that happened. And that was always an odd thing to me because that was a story very similar to the one that made us go to Bolivia in the first place. And all I could think when people told me those stories, like End of the Spear, any of Frank Drown's stories, any of the ones about God planted 5 seeds, was, why did somebody hate us that much? Why did somebody hate my family and friends so much that they tried to kill them without even really knowing them? And it was a huge deal to me when I actually got to talk to people who had been involved on the other side of that, like not white people. And they were like, things were coming out of the sky at us. People were yelling at us in weird languages. They had guns. This was scary, and we were trying to protect ourselves. And we were very sorry, which is why we let people come into our villages after that, and why we talked to them and helped them as much as we could and went with them to America, because that was the whole thing that happened.
Yeah.
But seeing the other side of that story was, to me, incredibly relatable, because that weird Eastern fat pastor came and changed everything about my grandparents' lives. And they had to uproot everything and change their entire way of being. And as far as I could tell, they weren't unhappy before that. I mean, they were glad for the change. I'm not going to deny that.
Right. It was.
They told it in a way that meant that it was healthier and it was better. But also, every single person who was interviewed for those movies and those books said that they were grateful for what had happened to them, and they had been living such sinful, horrible lives beforehand, and they were just so glad that white man came and saved them. And it never sat well with me that my grandfather's story and the story of the people that my grandfather was helping were so similar, because I could see cultures disappearing as we tried to help. And that was really sad to me. I always wanted to be like an anthropologist or something like that, which is why I got that first degree in missions, which was anthropology and Bible. But I always loved the National Geographics and the documentaries where you would go into a place and find out what made people like living the way that they lived. And we were actively trying to make that not a thing by giving them hand-me-down clothes and men's XL Nebraska Cornhuskers briefs.
But like, I mean, I remember. I don't know if that's a good route to go.
It's okay.
Well, I'm trying to. I'm gonna go somewhere, but I don't know. Okay, I'll put it this way. So much of Western missionary, divine
Manifest destiny.
manifest destiny, yes, those things are so backed by like the ideas of making uncivilized people civilized.
Yep. They don't know how to wash their hands. They don't know how to cut meat properly.
Yeah.
They don't know how to make sure that they get the intestines out of meat in a way that they won't infect the rest of it. They don't know what a virus is, and we're going to help them figure that out. Was always a big thing. You are civilizing the savages.
Which, it's a hard thing for me. Because, like, even hearing, like, the story of your grandpa, and, like, he stopped drinking, stopped using tobacco, and, I mean, in general...
Things that were
I'm like, that's
legitimately good because he didn't beat his family anymore.
Right. Right. That's the main reason I think that's good.
Yeah.
Plus, you know, he probably lived longer. Just purely health-wise.
Yeah.
Maybe a little too long for his sake.
Yeah, well, he replaced a lot of things with diabetes at the end there, but
yeah,
we'll get to that at a different time.
Yeah.
It's something in the random topic generator that we'll touch on at some point. Yeah, but yes, there were things about their conversion that legitimately made them better humans. Like, they were healthier, they were happier. They weren't beating their children as much.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, James Dobson.
Well, that was before James Dobson. James Dobson learned things from my grandparents.
Yeah.
That's part of where Focus on the Family came from, is my grandparents and their friends talking to James Dobson. Like, it's incredibly problematic. They thought that story where my auntie and uncle got in trouble and had to go cut their own switches in the rainforest was adorable, because my uncle found it and went and got beaten and was able to burn his switch, and then my auntie said, I can't find the switch, but here's a rock you can throw at me, and then got the rock thrown at her. They thought that was cute. Right. They thought that stoning an 8-year-old between 6 and 8, she was in there somewhere. She was little, and they thought that throwing a rock at her was cute.
So, I mean, what I take away from that is that the transformation was maybe less drastic than it's chalked up to be. Like, yeah, some things changed. Maybe some things for the better. But, like, the undertow of how life was approached and how kids were approached probably didn't change too drastically.
It seemed so drastic for them, though.
Yeah, it was drastic for them, but, like, the reality of, like, they didn't, like, I mean, I think there's a lot of thinks there.
That's okay.
I mean, on average, humans change slowly. And
that seems to accelerate
there were some accelerated changes.
Yeah.
Due to this very specific, but I'll go with my guess
like a rapid evolution.
But yeah, there was some rapid evolution, but meaning some things did not evolve rapidly, like child discipline. It sounds like that probably pretty much didn't change, is my guess. You know, not like
Yeah.
at least the perspective of how and why you discipline your children.
Yeah. Well, my grandmother didn't get beaten. That was a change.
Yeah, right.
But
she was still subservient.
She did have her children taken from her and sent
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
boarding school, very much against her will.
Right. It was still the subservient wife thought process. It was maybe a step up from getting beaten physically.
Yeah, well.
But that's not saying a whole lot, right?
Well, and a part of that too is that, I mean, it's glorified in my upbringing as this being missionaries and going to a new place and doing new things, and it's really cool because you've got stories that a lot of people can't share, and that's exotic and fun. But the other thing about that is my grandmother didn't have access to humans. Like, she was alone at the house for a majority of the growing up years of my father and my aunties and uncles. And
who were at boarding school.
Yeah, who were at boarding school. My grandfather was gone doing mission things. She was alone. She didn't speak the language. There were a lot of things that she couldn't get. She did not have any sort of social support whatsoever. And they had contact with other expatriates, specifically expatriate missionaries, at 6 o'clock every night when they checked in with each other on the ham radio so they could make sure somebody wasn't dead. And that's it. And in the meantime, it was raids from the Bolivian army trying to steal that radio and saying goodbye to my father, uncles, and auntie as they went to a religious boarding school where they were sexually abused. And she knew that, but it was God's will. So she had to let them do it because that was God's will. And that's, I would say...
It's not better.
Getting beaten's hard.
Yeah.
But at least if you're getting beaten in Montana and you have your sisters there, you can go to your sisters. If you are getting your children abused and being raided by soldiers who you don't know if they're going to rape you in a place where you don't speak the language, I don't know if that's better. My grandma was a fucking badass, and my grandpa's the folk hero, but oh my god, this woman made her own fence posts without anything, with a machete. This woman had never used a machete in her life, and she figured out how to do it, to make her own fence posts. She fixed thatching on roofs that she had never seen before. She figured out how to try to support her family and make risen loaf yeast bread in the salt flats when nobody could tell her how to change things from her recipe and she hadn't really done it before. Like, this is... It's very sexist that my grandfather is the folk hero.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. She didn't tell those stories very often.
She didn't tell those stories. She never got to tell the stories.
Yeah.
And she had dementia before she realized that those were stories that should be told.
Yeah. And
she tried to hint at them when she did have dementia, but that wasn't something that could really... She didn't remember most of it. She knew that it was bad, but she didn't really remember a lot of it. I think the best thing that came out of that... I mean, it gave a sense of purpose to my father and my uncles, my auntie, and I love that for them. But it also gave this incredibly close bond between my grandmother and grandfather, because they went through a lot of those things together and just did their best to support each other in really bad circumstances. And I always thought that was one of the most beautiful things that I had seen, was how much they cared for each other and were on the same page. Even though that just meant getting diabetes together in later life.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
They enjoyed later life.
Yeah,
dementia.
They were able to enjoy everything as much as possible, even when it meant, like, 300-piece puzzles and getting diabetes together by drinking way too many Costco cappuccinos.
Yeah.
Way too many.
Huh. What a mess. People are a mess.
People are a mess, and people are also kind of adorable.
Yeah.
Cause they did do that together. They made that big old house together. They dug privies and outhouses together and got wood together. I feel like a lot of what they had was stripped away, and a lot of it was bad, and a lot of it was good, but a lot of that was stripped away to the point where they were actually decently communicating with each other. And that's something I've seen in very, very few couples, was the connection that those two had.
Yeah.
It was really beautiful. I'm still not going to the funeral, though. I don't. Ugh. He taught everyone he ever precepted, taught everybody. His whole thing was, if somebody's going to a funeral, it's because they're sad and they are emotionally vulnerable, so they're way more likely to accept Jesus and do whatever you want them to do. So I know for a fact that at least 3 people will give the salvation message at his funeral, and if they didn't, he will haunt them from beyond the grave. It's a good thing he never figured out our address, because he would be hunting me from beyond the grave. Go give people the salvation message. I probably could right now. I could give you a real good salvation message. You want to get saved?
Done and dusted.
I mean, you just said you're dusty, which means we could dust you off, which is... One of the things I appreciate the most and hate the most about my family and upbringing is the being intentionally raised by my father and grandfather, because they both did this intentionally, to be a cult leader. And I admire it in a way, because I have a vagina, and that was never something they should have done with me. But both of them always knew that I had the skills, the storytelling ability, and the dedication to be a real good cult leader. Which is why I still have to try every day not to start cults. Not many people have the problem of needing to make a concerted effort every day to not start a cult.
Yeah, for sure. But but what I think comes up for me is like your average person who you go and talk to about religion and cults, they're just gonna be like, what? And I would never join a cult, and like that's crazy people stuff, and yeah.
A lot of people think that.
Yeah, a lot of people think that. But my takeaway, or I don't know, a takeaway I have from what we've talked about though is just that like what we grew up in, the cult. When we say cults and what we talk about cults and leaving a cult and religion and all the stuff that we grew up with and know, and it's not a simple thing.
It's not.
It is a very complex human thing that is, I mean, it's full of history, it's full of nuance, it's full of people being in different places at very different times, trying to figure stuff out. Like, well, and like even like, I'll go with my parents, trying their best to raise kids in what they knew, and like that's not simple either. and and it's easy to refer to it very flatly as cult, but it's not.
Well, and that's because that's what people understand.
Well, for sure, and it was.
They
I'm
understand
not arguing
I
that.
left something hard when you say I left a cult.
Right, for sure.
But they don't.
But they don't know what that means
Yeah.
in terms of so many decisions that humans made in most of the cases I know of in a very well-intentioned way.
Yeah.
Like there were lots of positive, hopeful intentions.
Well, and lots of positive changes to their lives as well in terms of like addiction and domestic violence and that sort of thing. So you're right that a lot of people, when they hear I left a cult, what they hear is I jumped over a wall because somebody tried to rape me.
Yeah.
What they don't hear is I turned my back on centuries and generations worth of teaching and support.
Yeah.
Because they were not willing for me to think one thing different from them.
Right.
And it seems like an exaggeration when you say it that way until you take into account my parents coming into town this week and refusing to even drive by the house that we bought because you're trans.
Pretty much.
And I didn't leave you.
Yeah.
If I had divorced you when you turned trans and gone to church with the children, yeah, exactly. They would have come to my house and given me all support necessary.
For sure. They would have. Yeah. No question.
They would invite me to move in with them, but since you turned trans and I didn't renounce you or shoot you in the head.
Oh dear.
I know, but they would rather have that because
Probably.
at least that would make sure that you don't have a bad influence on the children. But because we're still together and they disagree with us spiritually specifically, they will not even drive by and see the house that we bought. They have to meet us at a park and cannot eat any of the food that we bring to the park.
Yeah.
They have to provide their own food.
Yeah. Yep.
And not speak directly to you.
Apparently, as much as possible.
As much as possible. Because to them, in some way, that means that our children will see them being the kindest people they've ever met and turn to Jesus.
That's the hope.
That's the hope.
Yeah.
That's the hope right there, is that them showing up at a park and refusing to eat our food is going to make our children think they are holy and I love them. And I want to leave my parents and go live on this compound with my well-armed grandparents.
Yeah. But like... I mean, it would be fascinating to me to know if you would have asked your grandma and grandpa a week after they became Christians, 30 years from now, you're going to have a granddaughter who comes out as lesbian. What do you think about that? I'd be really curious what their answer would have been.
Yeah.
At that point in time. I don't know. I have no idea. I'll never know. But it would be interesting.
Yeah, it would be. Well, and the closest we ever came to that was one cousin out of however many cousins got pregnant out of wedlock one time. They weren't the first. They weren't the last. It's happened a lot because this is not the 1920s. But it was just so kind of my grandparents and all of us to allow my cousin and their partner to be visibly pregnant and in our presence. But only that person's direct family came to that wedding. The rest of us would never have even considered it.
Yeah.
Which is just I am so sorry.
I
If my cousin ever watches this, I am so sorry. That was
oh,
idiotic.
yeah.
But they even blocked every single photo intentionally to avoid showing any pregnancy bellies. Like, it was so stupid.
Yeah. But again, though, I think we, in the midst of telling stories and being sentimental about all the good things that happened, like it's so easy to gloss over the self righteous group that got joined, right? Like no matter what, it was still like what happened was, you know, the family ended up joining this group that was better than this other group. Right?
Yeah, well,
or all of the other groups,
and
really.
they do have their own reasons for that too.
Well, for sure. Like it's not.
I have
simple, it's
found
complex.
out in the past several years that the reason my parents specifically decided that they can never support gay people is because while my father was at that boarding school, he was abused in a homosexual manner.
Yeah.
So obviously homosexuals are abusers.
Right.
And that's trauma, and I cannot deny that trauma. And it is so sad that that is the only relationship they realized was homosexual. It still blows my mind though, because we worked with so many single female missionaries who had a missionary partner female, and they lived together for years. Yeah. They could never allow the idea that they were homosexual, but they shared bedrooms, they shared houses, they traveled together, they moved together, they went to different countries together. They got relocated when we changed missions agencies to different continents together.
Yeah, well,
and it was so.
They spun it.
They spun it really. I'm really impressed how much they spun it, but to have it never occur to anybody that I knew that's a lesbian, honey.
Yeah.
That's a lesbian.
Yeah. But
all of my favorite aunties were lesbians.
Cognitive dissonance. It's impressive stuff.
It is impressive stuff.
It's like very impressive stuff. It's amazing what the human brain can do.
And what disservice are we doing to people when we allow them to believe that abusive relationship is the only way that homosexuality can be?
Always.
Because
not good.
You're hiding from them everything that you are to try to avoid causing them pain. But what you are doing is reinforcing that homosexual relationships can only ever be painful and non-consensual.
Yeah.
And I understand why they did that. I understand why they had to hide things. They would have lost all support, just like we did. I mean, when we came out, we lost our house, we lost our jobs, we lost our income, we lost everything, and we're homeless. And the same thing would have happened to them. You know, it makes me really proud of us when I think that they were too scared and did not have the resources to do that, even if they had a cat together. And we knew that we could find resources to successfully leave that religion and come out, even though we lost every single support network with 5 children.
Yep.
We've come a long ways as a society for that to be able to be a reality.
Sure. Well, for sure. Yeah, we probably couldn't have done that 20 years ago.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, probably not. It's not insignificant. I mean, and, you know, it's hard to know when you didn't live 20 years ago, but...
Didn't live as an adult 20 years
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say something. What was it? I lost it.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot that comes up in the next few weeks / few months. as they plan and execute all of the post-mortem instructions from my grandfather, the folk hero.
Yeah. For sure.
And we all know that my father gets to be the next folk hero.
Well, obviously.
Obviously. I mean, he may be the youngest, but he's also the most holy.
Obviously. Mr. Bible President. Man.
Mr. Bible President. He's not even the first Bible president
I
of his
know.
siblings.
It's true, but somehow stands out.
Still stands out. I'm pretty sure that's because of my older brother. I mean, it was because of us for a little while, because we were super holy.
We did so good, and then we didn't.
We did so good, but now my brothers are the most holy of the cousins, so...
I remember what I was thinking.
Yep.
Go ahead.
For a while, my father was obviously the most holy precursor and going to be the next folk hero because all of his children were following Jesus, and none of my uncles or aunties had that privilege of having every single one of their predecessors' children following Jesus and doing Jesus-y things.
Yeah.
And
We really messed it up.
we fucked it up.
You know, that goes along with what I was thinking. It's like, what's interesting about us is like, if we didn't go from like we did things the most backwards way possible compared to all of the stories of our ancestors. And like they went from the stories of our ancestors were, you know, drugs to Jesus ish in some way or another.
And none of them ever did hard
I
drugs
know,
as
sorry.
far as we know.
Alcohol to Jesus.
If they had done
tobacco
hard
to
drugs, we
Jesus,
probably never would have found it out though.
whatever it was. Yeah, probably not.
Anyways, but yes, we did it backwards.
Or, you know, even if it was...
They all went from bad to Jesus, and we went from Jesus to, oh my God, lesbians and transgenders?
Right. But we didn't go from not a system to a system. We went from a system to...
chaos.
The reality is not a system. Like, we're not part of a system. I mean, maybe they would associate it with like a movement or something at the tops. Like
they would associate it with the democratic movement as a system, but it doesn't. Movement, it's not the same.
But it's not
thing,
like
though.
we joined something.
Because like when my grandparents joined things, they had churches who would come behind them and give them money to do things.
Yeah, we don't have that.
We don't have the privilege of moving into an infrastructure.
Right. No.
That supports us.
There's an ideological world that we can exist in.
Yeah.
That, you know, is there and we you know, benefit from. And
yeah. Well, and I do feel like we share similarities with my grandparents specifically in that we're moving from what we view as an untenable moral system to a more tenable moral system.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there's a huge similarity there.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's weird that it's away from their untenable moral system, but
yeah,
that's the rub.
We don't.
That's why we can't talk to our families. Basically, we don't rub. Oh my goodness.
That would be untenably morally speaking. And if you think that was funny, you have an untenable moral system.
You cult leader, you.
I am a cult. Do you know how many people come up to me unprompted and are like, if you were a cult leader, I would follow you. Can you not say that? I'm at work. I am at work and I am trying not to start cults right now. And then if I do say like, hey, I'm starting a cult, it's about this, I will have people come up to me unprompted and be like, oh yeah, I'll be part of your cult. which I appreciate. I think it's adorable. I actually love it because it shows that I did not waste my first 3 years of life, which I appreciate entirely. I mean, if I did ever make a cult, which I might.
Yeah.
It would have a lot more weird sex stuff than our cults had, Tess.
It would.
They
were very boring cults.
They
that
got
we came out of. Very
all
boring. They missed out.
all of the holiness with none of the fun.
That's
I mean,
very
it was
impressive.
just the worst possible cult. I mean, at least some of them are like polyamorous or have lots of bombs or something. Like ours had none of the interesting shit, and
So boring.
I'm kind of bitter about that. Actually, I'm not going to. I mean, I do have hearing loss related to too many ammunitions.
Yeah, that was Montana-ness.
That was more Montana than it was Colt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, I said I had this bad family member of a patient the other day, and she tried to figure out what was going on with me, and I was like, I am so sorry. I do have hearing loss. She's like, oh, are you a veteran? I'm like, no, I was just an expat. And I'm pretty sure, because she said her son has some hearing loss. And I was like, yeah, well, a lot of us who came out of the 90s had that. And she's like, oh, he wasn't even born in the 90s. Are you a veteran? And I was like, no, but I was an expat. So I'm pretty sure from everything that she said to me after that, that she thinks I was a spy.
Probably.
She thinks I was a spy.
Yeah.
I wasn't a spy.
That's what a spy would say.
That is what a spy would say. You'll never know.
So is anybody who wasn't a spy, and I've never understood that saying. If you weren't a spy, you would say I wasn't a spy. So why don't we say that's what you would say if you weren't a spy? I don't know. That doesn't make sense.
I wasn't a spy.
Okay. On that
I was maladjusted.
Weren't we all?
But yeah, the next few weeks to probably a couple of months are going to be the deconstructing and dealing with the part where we have to try to finally bury a folk hero. I mean, the burial itself is not hard. My grandfather bought his plot 50 years ago, and my parents have plots adjoining it, which they bought as their wedding gift to each other.
That's so weird. That's really weird.
I've always thought it was a little weird.
That's super weird.
I'm sorry I didn't buy you a burial plot as a wedding gift.
That's so weird.
I will buy you a wedding plot.
I
mean, a burial plot? Do you want a burial plot?
No! Gross.
We also used to visit my cousin's grave/cemetery and take pictures on a regular basis. Just to make sure it was being taken care of.
Just to make sure.
Because they were dead.
Make sure. It makes
They're
no sense.
in
They're
my
supposed to
photo
be in
albums.
heaven. It doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. Folk Christianity is freaking weird.
I would submit that there isn't another kind of Christianity than folk Christianity.
Sure. But
I mean, we like to think that there is.
I have to tie death ceremonies to folk Christianity specifically because it has to come from ideas prior to this knowledge, this idea that people live forever, because you wouldn't go and spend excessive time taking care of somebody's grave with the concept that they're happily in heaven forever.
And yet people do constantly.
But people do because of old traditions prior to that thought process, right?
Well, the way that it was described to me to justify that is that you have to go take care of people's graves. And a few of my cousins died early, so that was a whole thing. But you have to go take care of their graves and make a point of their mortality to impress the idea of mortality and immortality on your children. Which is why when we just got married, we got asked for money to buy a gravestone for my uncle that no one knew existed.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was weird. But no, I had several cousins die very early. And we had to visit their graves and see their photos and make sure that we understood that God loved them and they were in heaven. So we had to love God.
Yeah. It's still cognitive dissonance, though.
Yeah.
Because
it
they're
is.
in heaven forever, but mortality is real and so is death. Like, but it's not because we live forever. Like, it's one of those things. It's cognitive dissonance. You die, but you don't die. Make it make sense.
Yeah. Well, because at every funeral, like for my great grandmother, they would say, "Oh, it's so nice. She died. She's in heaven. It's wonderful," but they would still cry.
Oh yeah, it was still death in reality, but they had.
And when you train a
idea
child that
wasn't-
way, right? And I don't know if any of this has to do with being autistic, but you're like, okay, so I believe what you said. You're not acting like you believe what you said,
Yeah.
and that's confusing.
It's confusing. No, that was confusing to me. There were so many things about eternal life and getting to go to heaven that that they preached and talked about, and yet like would freak out about people dying as if that weren't the case. And it's like, wait a second, are they living with Jesus forever? Like, don't you believe this? It's what you told me.
Yeah. I think
that's cognitive dissonance in like the most real way.
I feel like a more real way for cognitive dissonance for me was my mother had a cousin, and by all accounts from what I was told, he was incredibly rebellious as a teenager / early 20s, and he bought a motorcycle, and he got in a crash and ended up like quadriplegic, very delayed.
But go ahead.
And the whole point there was God loves him because he's cognitively delayed, and he's definitely going to go to heaven because he has repented, because he did really bad things and got hurt really bad, and all of that was deliberate by God, so none of us would ever rebel again.
Yeah. And we could put on him because he didn't argue.
Exactly.
That he repented and is saved.
No, he could never argue.
Yeah. Same with I had a cousin who that's a long story. Short version of the story, died because of drugs. Because he took too many drugs. And I actually have a couple cousins. Completely. Who died because they took too many drugs. Nobody. It is so you see the cognitive dissonance come out so strongly between before they died, how they talked about that person, and what the trajectory of their lives was supposed to be. Hell, right?
Right.
They go to church. They're doing drugs. They're shunned by their family. They're like all these things. But they died tragically young.
20s.
Yeah. And the story flips.
It does.
Somehow.
Well, because even the Christian rap songs that we listened to, I can't remember which one it was, but I will definitely find it for you. There was one Christian rap song that we were actually allowed to listen to that was like, even people who die young, God comes to them in the moment between death and life and asks them if they believe in him, and they have that chance to make a real choice as to whether or not they believe in Jesus.
Yeah, which they would say to you in the context of somebody dying like that, but they would never ever tell you that in the context of you deciding how you're going to live your life.
No.
Right? And never would they mix those contexts of storytelling. Right? It's only in the context of somebody
being dead.
Yeah, they're already dead.
Because they can't speak for themselves.
Right.
Oh, well, either dead or quadriplegic and mute.
Right. Yeah. Still can't speak for
because
themselves.
as long as you can't speak for yourself, God loves you.
Right.
And you repented.
And you repented and are going to be saved. Yeah. Yeah. Which, rules us out very strongly.
Damn it.
But, like, we could die right now, tragically.
Well,
in theory.
And
our
more
parents would probably say that. The same, the more tragically, the better. For sure. Because clearly it was our life choices leading to this horrible death. And
well, yeah, we probably have AIDS or something, Tess.
Oh boy.
I mean, every homosexual has AIDS. You know that, right?
Every single one.
Every single one.
That's right.
I don't actually. I'm
God's curse.
I mean, you're not technically homosexual because you got born with a penis and like women, so I don't know if you get to do AIDS. And I'm pansexual, so I like people with both parts. So I don't know if I get to have AIDS either.
I don't know. It's too complicated.
It's too complicated. We're gonna have to figure out whether or not we get to have AIDS. If we do have AIDS, we can be super holy when we die.
That's right. Go to heaven. Anyways.
That's right.
I want to go to heaven. Scary people there.
Oh yeah, but you get to like go fishing in the river of life.
Hate fishing. I've always hated fishing.
Well, you'll like fishing when Jesus tells you to fish. The only part of fishing I ever
liked was being in the mountains. I like being in the mountains, but
well, fine then.
You can be in the mountains so many ways without fishing.
Then Jesus has mountains.
You have to touch gross things to fish. I don't like that part.
That's true.
I finished my beer.
You're allowed. I also finished a lot of the stories about the dead folk hero who is my grandfather who did not have AIDS.
Not. He had lots of other health problems.
He had lots of other things, but definitely not AIDS. And then in the next one, I really do think we should talk about the Christian approach to diabetes.
Yeah. Or sugar in general.
Oh, God. Also not sugar, because Diet Coke is like the worst.
Or aspartame. Yeah.
So bad. Yeah. Anyways, right now we're going to turn it off and enjoy this new fireplace.
Sounds good to me. Fireplace.
Yeah, that was a good idea. I like the fireplace. I can get up too if you need me to.